back again, Bryn. We're going to talk today about making newsletters. Is that right?
Yes, so it's a pretty frequently asked question from folks how to create recurring emails, things like newsletters right from CRM. So we thought we'd go ahead and make a video about it just to answer some of the most commonly asked questions today.
Yeah, I think people are going to be surprised at how easy it is to do newsletters in Dynamic CRM. So why don't we get into it right away? And I know newsletters can be done both for prospects and for existing customers. And of course, we did that other session on making marketing lists, at least I believe we did, where you can slice and dice your data up in many different ways. So, like, you could even make newsletters that are specific for certain sectors of your customer base or your prospect base. So, you can have very focused newsletters to achieve greater open rates and greater read rates and greater call to action rates. So, are we going to focus on any one specific type of newsletter today or just the idea of how to do newsletters?
I think today is probably best to keep it pretty general when it comes to what the email content is. We will walk through the entire process though. So I know we do have a video on marketing lists. We're not going to dive like super deep into how we create those today, but I will walk through that just in case folks haven't seen that video, and we'll just do the entire end to end, how to create our template for our newsletter, how to select who we're sending it to, and then obviously how to get it out. So
Awesome.
hopefully should be a pretty smooth video for everybody from end to end.
Okay, great. And for those of you who haven't yet, hit the subscribe button. We're going to be making more videos this year, so you'll want to stay tuned because we're going to be sharing more of these very practical tips on how to get the most out of your dynamic CRM investment, and we want to make sure that you stay tuned. So where are we going to start here, Brent? Are we going to start with the list itself, or not really because you said we already did that, so are you just going to dive right into the newsletter? I don't know where
Let's
we're going. Surprise me.
Surprise. All right. So I think, well, we could start really anywhere, right? I think for today, let's go ahead and start with building. Let's look at email templates. I think is usually a pretty good place to start. You
Perfect.
don't need an email template necessarily to send out a newsletter or send out an email, but it can improve things like our branding consistency and just making sure that, we have a nice template to go back to for future emails. We don't have to reinvent the wheel every time we want to send out an email to our marketing list, right?
Yep.
Okay, so to get to our templates, first thing I will say is that in order to create an email template, you're going to want to have the system administrator role. So if you don't have system administrator, you'll have access to use email templates, but you're going to need that role or equivalent security permissions to actually be able to create them. So,
To me, that makes a lot of sense because I
yeah.
have a lot of prospects who will ask me, well, can anybody make a newsletter? And the answer is I think you can configure it that way, but the
Yeah.
truth is you kind of want to control the marketing efforts of your company to make sure that there's a consistent brand messaging across the entire organization. But technically, you could allow other people to create newsletters than just a marketing coordinator, correct?
You could definitely. So I think it's that saying, like, too many cooks in the kitchen, right?
Yeah.
Where you absolutely can open it up to create email templates across different roles. I think the biggest concern with that is that you'll just end up with a sea of email templates, right? With different naming conventions,
Hmm.
and maybe, there are more opportunities for error if you have a lot of different templates, a lot of different things going on in the back end. So typically we suggest that it's best for one person or a small group of people just to have visibility and kind of ownership of that piece. So if you do talk to your team about what kind of email templates they're interested in building or what should a newsletter look like, typically it's best if we just have one or a couple people in charge, but ideas obviously are always welcome.
Absolutely. Okay, so you need admin rights. So then
Yes.
what's the next step?
So we're going to go up here to our settings gear icon right up at the top of the page. We're going to go down to our advanced settings as an admin to take a look in our backend, our email templates. All right, and you can see right here on the left-hand side in the navigation pane, we have the option for templates. I'm just going to click that here and go straight on down to email templates. So there are a decent number of email templates available just out of the box. You are able to customize these as well. So if you can open these up, you can edit, you can make changes to the ones that exist right out of the box, or you can just go ahead and create a new email template right up at the top, which is what I'm going to do now.
And to be clear, those are just standard emails, like account
Yes.
reconnect. You'd send that out to someone that maybe you haven't spoken to for a few months or a year even. And some of these other ones are just standard emails, but we're going to make an actual newsletter email.
Yes. So, yeah, I definitely would suggest if you haven't worked with email templates before, coming back into this area and just take a look at what's there. Give you some maybe good ideas for templates if you don't have your own built out. And again, you can edit the existing out of the box ones, or we can just create our own, which is the process that we're going to follow today. All right, so the first thing that I'm going to do is give my email template a name. I'm just going to call this, let's call it quarterly newsletter. The first thing that I want to do after naming my template is to decide if I want this permissions level to be given to an individual or have anybody in the organization have access to it. So typically for something like a newsletter, we could leave it at the individual. If we're creating templates for things like our account reconnects, our follow-ups, our quote templates, things like that, we always want to make sure that those are set to organization. It's generally a good default setting. I usually will set permission to organization unless there's a specific reason why I would not want to.
Yeah.
The next option that I have here is for my category. So you can see these are all of the different tables within Dynamics that we can target for things like pulling in our dynamic text, pulling in our account name, pulling in our contact record, different information on records. It doesn't really, for our newsletter, we're not going to need to be pulling in a bunch of information about like specific opportunities or different quotes in the system. We're going to be pretty generic about who we're targeting and how. So I'm going to go ahead and just select the contact table.
Can you also connect at a business level as well? Yeah, okay, there it is, the account level.
You can, yes. So I could connect at the account and pull that information in. You can also reference these tables within the email template. So even if I select contact, I still will have access to some account details and vice versa, because those tables are related in Dynamics. I think email templates might be a good one for us to do maybe a longer form video on the future, just to walk through some of these differences as well. But yeah, absolutely. You can target accounts, contact, really any of these primary tables are going to be good for our purposes today.
To me, I also see a lot of customers that we work with and prospects we talk to have different types of emails and blast emails, which is I want to email everybody in my database versus I want to just email the primary purchasing agent at my customer. So I'd imagine like the account would be better for emailing just one email to an account, and contacts would be if you want to like just spread the love to everybody.
That's a good point. We'll take a look at that too when we're putting together our marketing list, because that's going to give us the opportunity to filter down in that contact pool. So for instance, yes, if we want to look at the job title, or if we want to look at only decision makers, or if we want to look at primary contacts, we have the ability to do that inside of our marketing filtering as well for that list we're going to create together.
So with this category, does this mean this template will only show up if I'm on the contact entity?
Yes, so you'll have to use it with the associated entity. So if I were, for instance, creating a email that I wanted to send from opportunities, I wouldn't want to create my template on something like an entitlement or an invoice, because it's not going to have the related information and it's not going to be able to be sent directly from that record type, for instance. It'll give you an error and tell you that if you go ahead and try.
That makes sense. And from a practical standpoint too, when I use the system, I won't be drowning in templates that don't apply to my account or my opportunity or my case wherever I am. I'll only see the email templates that apply to that specific area of the system. So makes sense to me.
Yeah, very good point. And it's also nice because it will, and we'll look at this when we actually insert our template in a bit, but it'll show you by section, right? Like these are all of my opportunity templates. These are all of my contact templates. These are all of my quote templates. So it can just make the entire template database a little bit more manageable when you see it in sections rather than just an entire list where we're scrolling through trying to figure out what it is that I'm looking for.
Makes sense. Okay, great.
Awesome. So I have got my selections here. English is my option because that's my system language that it's set to. And then I'm going to go ahead and say create here at the bottom. All right, and hopefully this is pretty self-explanatory. We've all seen an email before, but you've got some options for your subject line here and for rich text down at the bottom. Incidentally, this description field that's up here at the top, no one will see that externally to your organization. So you can type some descriptive notes about what this template is, what it's used for, just to give your team a little bit more insight and guidance on when and where and how to use this template. And that will not be visible to anybody who's receiving it, as these two boxes down here will be.
Makes sense. And like the description field, I've seen this before with some customers that have been using CRM for years, where they have like 500 different templates, and like without that, just you think at the time you're making it like, oh, I'm going to remember this, but then 2 years later you're looking through your templates and you're like, what was this template? So it's always good to put some sort of like notice in there.
Yes, absolutely agree with that. We also want to be, quarterly newsletter, I definitely could have been a lot more detailed in my naming conventions there. I'd say if this were like a real world example, I probably would want to be a little bit more detailed like I was down here in this description. But the more detailed that you can be in your naming conventions anywhere in CRM, from our email templates to our quotes, our orders, our opportunities information, the more detailed you can be for everybody, the less brain power we have to use later on figuring out what this is and when I made it and what's it for. And also keeping these records clean. So if I create a new newsletter template, I want to make sure I go in and deactivate the old record so that I'm not pulling in, 5 versions of the same thing back to 2010 for templates that, are no longer useful to me.
And that's also a really good tip for emails in general, because you don't want your team to be using outdated templates, especially if and I know we'll get to this at a later date, but if you attach like a PDF or something with old pricing, for example,
yes,
you don't want people to be using the pricing from 2 years ago. So that makes a lot of sense.
Exactly. And I think that's another good point too for why we suggest having one or a small group of people with oversight over templates, because in my case, right, I'm only really interested in templates as a salesperson, most likely, when I need to create one and use it right now quickly. I'm not spending a lot of my time thinking about outdated templates or cleaning up these things or data consistency. I just want it when I want it, and I want it to be correct. So when we have somebody in an admin and or like a management position who's looking at these templates and making sure that they're updated, that they're clean, that we're using the right ones, it's typically a lot smoother for everybody.
I like that.
Awesome. So, like I said, probably pretty self-explanatory here. We can give our subject. So we'll just say, checking in. I'm going to use a different template here in a second, but let's just say we've got our template subject. We can give it some text down here at the bottom. You can see here, Peter.
Can I suggest a subject?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Tips. Q1 2025.
Q1 2025. Like I said, I'm not a marketer. So
I want people to open my email.
Yeah. If you do want people to open your email, have somebody other than me suggest your template subjects. But this is a pretty good one, I'd say, for our subject template. We've also got the option you mentioned earlier about attaching things like price lists. You can have attachments added in here to any template. You can also insert dynamic text. So that's something maybe we'll quickly take a look at. So if I say...
Is that like the username? It'll merge data basically with whoever's record you're on, or whatever the list is?
It is, yes. So what the dynamic text is going to do here is it's actually going to reference the record that you're on. So for instance, if I pull in something like, I'll just do the example here. We'll say, hi. I don't think it's probably best practice marketing wise to just send out an email blast to everybody that says, hey, customer. Hey, friend. Hey, pal, to make sure that we're targeting people individually. So what I can do here is when I go to dynamic text, you can see I've got the different drop downs here for the record types that I'm able to pull. And this was based on the selection that I made earlier, where I decided I was going to use a contact template. So I'm going to select my contact. And then these are all of the fields that are on my contact table within Dynamics. So if I want to pull in an address, if I want to pull in
let's get their first name, I guess.
Yeah, their first name, something like that. I could also give it default text. So if my contact record was missing a first name, hypothetically, I could put something in there and just say, hey, buddy. Yeah, we'll say buddy. Hey, buddy. Hopefully that's not on too many records, but we'll go ahead and insert.
If that's on too many records, we should have a session on cleaning up your data.
We should, for sure.
You should give us a call so we can help you clean up your data.
Yeah, if this sounds familiar to you, absolutely hit subscribe, and our emails will be somewhere in this email text as well.
Yeah, exactly.
But we've got hi, buddy, and again, this is just for first name. I could pull in any other kind of record details. This is a newsletter, so I'm not going to be worried too much about like specific account details, but I could pull those in.
Yeah. And in theory, with a newsletter, you really are probably doing a kind of more of a templated kind of thing without any kind of personal data, but you could slide some information in there like about the person's name or their company name. So that could work.
You definitely could. And especially when we're talking about templates, which is not the topic for today, but if we're talking about things like quote templates, opportunity templates, account connects, things like that, those are really great areas to pull in that really detailed, rich CRM data that we have in the system to make those emails really personalized and useful also for the sales team or for other teams.
Yep.
Okay, so From here, obviously, I can go ahead and continue building out my email template with some more text. One thing that I do want to mention though is that you can see here, it's a pretty basic email, very
Mm-hmm.
basic, just kind of some text on a blank form. One other option that you have here is that if you do have a HTML editor, or if you have the ability to create and utilize HTML, you can make this a lot more interactive than it currently looks now. So I'm just going to say,
Yeah, I was going to ask about that because I think
yeah,
like most marketing would be done with an HTML based newsletter these days. I do see
yes.
some newsletters that do just plain text, and it's your mileage may vary which way you want to do it, but a lot of people will do like a graphical builder of a template, like with a
Mhm.
header at the top and maybe a custom line at the bottom.
Yes, and I will say if you're looking for really robust email template and really robust options when it comes to customizing your content, we do have some videos we've posted previously about the Customer Insights Journeys app, which is the Dynamics 365 marketing app. There are, when we talk about templates, there's not much you can't do with those Dynamics templates. They're very flexible and there's a lot more information there. We're focusing just today on kind of the out of the box Dynamics 365 sales side. So these are going to have less features than the custom marketing app, obviously, but you still have some good opportunities to use HTML in these as well. It's just not necessarily as expanded as the options that you get inside marketing itself.
I'm glad you brought that up, and I just want to restate it in my own way for people that are
Yeah.
following along here. So, what we're showing you today is the marketing ability, the email template newsletter ability built into the sales module. So, this is with the core sales module. It is it's still pretty robust, but it's
Mm-hmm.
not as robust as the full marketing module, which is called Customer Insights. And we've done a video on that already, so you should go check that out if you want. You can also integrate Dynamics sales with something like MailChimp or Constant Contact to do your
Yes.
newsletters, and that's another video for another day. But
Yes.
what we're showing you is just the basics of how to do this within Dynamics itself, the Dynamics sales module.
Yes, exactly. So I actually did go ahead and again, not a marketer, but if I go down here to the bottom, I did copy paste in just some basic HTML for a newsletter. So you can see what that would look like. And I literally took it from my editor and pasted it right in. So you can
Okay.
see I've got, it's not beautiful on the back template end, but we'll see what this looks like on the front end when we actually build out an email.
This makes sense to me. So they would build this in some sort of HTML newsletter tool or whatever, some builder tool, and then they just copy and paste the raw HTML
Yeah.
into that text box. And I assume that they could go and replace some text with dynamic text if they chose to. But
Yes.
this, to me, seems like the way that people would probably end up doing this because most people want, beautiful looking email templates these days.
Exactly. So I could do that now. I'm just going to insert some dynamic text. I'm going to do the same thing that we did earlier and just pull in the contact first name. Go on down. Good thing it's at the top of the alphabet.
Perfect.
Buddy. Great. And insert. There we go. So I'm going to go ahead and save and close so that my rich text or my personalized dynamic text updates. And then let's go through the process of actually sending my email newsletter out to
Yeah.
folks, right?
And just to be clear, that was it. We just built
Yeah.
the template. We built the newsletter. So,
Yes. So if I wanted to attach documentation, if I wanted to attach anything else, I could. You can also edit that template. So if I want to have, you see it down here at the bottom, I've just called it my newsletter template.
hmm
So I could continue updating this every month, every quarter, whatever it is. I come back in here and I can just either change the text itself and leave the general formatting, or I could copy paste the whole chunk of HTML in every single time.
on a related note,
Yeah.
so I could start with this base newsletter. Could I copy it and say, okay, this is the Q1 newsletter, this is the Q2 newsletter? Like, is there an easy way to copy these and create new ones?
There is, if we come out, let's take a quick look and see if we're able to copy.
I mean, you don't have to
I,
show me. I just was wondering. I also true. Worst cases, you've already shown like we can just copy the
yeah,
body and that takes like 5 seconds to go and copy the body out and put it into a
yes.
new one.
Copy paste right away. And like I said, if you select one here, you'll see the edit option up at the top. So you can just
Uh-huh.
come in, edit the existing, edit your current newsletter, save, and it will update for all new outgoing emails. Nothing, obviously, in the past is going to be updated.
Perfect.
All right, so I'm going to leave my back end and go back into the front end of our CRM. So back to our on-track sales hub app.
We're going to go and pull the names that we want to send this to.
Yes. So for this newsletter, I want to say maybe I only want to send this out to current customers. Maybe I have a quarterly newsletter or some other communications for things like prospects or vendors or partners, anybody else that I have in my system. So I'm going to go quickly to marketing lists and I'm just going to create the list of folks that I want to send this communication to. So I'm going to say new marketing list up at the top. I'm going to
And you're
put
going to
in
go
some
through this pretty
basic.
quickly, but people, if they want to see the
Yes.
more detailed version, they should check out our other video.
Yes, exactly. So we've got a great video on this. It goes through a lot of details. I'm just going to kind of spin through it quickly, but you'll hopefully get a good summary of the idea. So I'm going to go ahead and choose dynamic list, which is going to allow me to query my existing customer base or my existing contact base in CRM. I can give this a purpose and just say newsletter. Great. And then who am I going to target? This was to your point earlier, Peter, about am I looking
Yeah.
at the email on the account and I'm just sending one email out, or do I want every contact that fits my
Let's
criteria?
go
So,
everyone.
yeah, I want to send it to everybody. I want everybody at that company to be getting my email communications. So I'm going to go ahead and just leave the rest of this blank because this information isn't super relevant for me right now. And once I save, you can see I get some options here for campaigns and quick campaigns. Oh, actually, I'm going to set up first, though, my query. So I'm going to go up here to the top and say manage members. And this is how I'm actually going to get those contacts from my system onto my list so that the system knows who to send my email to. So contact, I can actually just pull in an existing view with any
Oh,
record. So I
yeah.
could say all my contacts or active contacts or
Customer contacts,
active
if you had a view
customers,
for
which I,
that.
yes, exactly. I don't think I have that view in this system, but I'll just walk through how I would create that.
Sure.
So if I'm using my active contacts, the next thing I'm going to do is it shows me here that I have the ability to continue adding rows and refining my query. So I'm going to add a new row. And then I'm going to say that my relationship type. Actually, you know what? With this account data that I have here, I think that we might only be looking at active contacts. However, if I wanted to continue building, I could just say my relationship type equals customer, my relationship type equals prospects, and just continue building this query out. I just don't want to limit what we're actually getting too much.
Yeah, and I think this is fine because, again, the purpose of this is just to show how the newsletters get generated. If people want to see
Yeah.
how to build lists, they should check out the other video where we
Yes.
spent a good amount of time how to like segment and build those lists.
We sure did. So I'm going to go ahead and just say find, and it's going to return for me everybody who fits that criteria that I just set. Okay, good. So it looks like I've got a good number of list members in here to target. You can see this is actually a good example. I know it's here as a test example, so it's not great. There's no data in here. This is nice for us though, because in this situation, it gives me, the person building out my newsletter, the opportunity to put my eyeballs in this and say, oh, this record probably should not be in CRM, or it needs to be updated. It needs an email address. It shouldn't fit my query. So I could either choose to select this and go in and edit my record and make sure that those things are there, or I could make it an inactive or otherwise edit it as well.
I mean, just out of curiosity, because that doesn't have
Yeah.
an email address, would you get a bounce back somehow?
You wouldn't even get a bounce back really because it's not going to be able to send the
I
email
see.
message at all. So it just won't send. So it's just going
I
to give
see.
you an error message. It'll show up on this SAM test timeline as unable to send because it doesn't have the requisite criteria.
Makes sense.
All right, so I'm actually just going to use this query without editing SAM just for today. Don't do this in your regular life.
Clean up your data, please.
Clean up your data for sure. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just refresh so I know I have the most current version of the page. And I have the option right now to choose either to send a campaign or a quick campaign message. And you can do either with a newsletter. So if we're looking to just do an email blast and just kind of get it out and get it in front of people, typically that's going to be a quick campaign. So it's one action. I'm sending out a bulk email. It goes into the universe and there's not much really that I want to do beyond that. I can capture campaign responses manually. We'll take a look at that in a second also. But if I wanted this newsletter to be part of a larger campaign and say maybe I have some discount codes that I'm offering in this newsletter, or if I have some, events coming up that this includes information about. So if I wanted to include this in a larger campaign, I could build out multiple steps in a marketing campaign here, or I could just go with the quick, easy campaign option.
For me, like I always use the example for a campaign, like if you're announcing a new product, you might do
Yes.
not a newsletter necessarily, but an email blast about your new product. And then you might set up a series of phone calls for your account managers to call all their contacts to let them know, hey, this new product is launching. And then maybe do another, like a snail mail drop later on after that too. So it's like a series of steps to promote a certain end result.
Yes, exactly. For today, I'm just going to walk through the quick campaign. We could circle back to campaigns if we have time. We might want to do an entire video on this though at a later date
Yeah.
too. So it is pretty in depth. So if you want to make sure that you subscribe, if that sounds interesting to you, there's a lot of steps that go into building a campaign that we could walk through together.
Yeah, I'd also say too, though, just I don't know what you think about this, but like people that have dedicated marketing teams and are actually running real campaigns, they should take a look at the customer insights
Yes.
module because it's going to give you a lot more options and it's a lot, in my opinion, a lot more robust and frankly a little bit easier to use in a lot of these areas. Like even building the HTML newsletter, like you can actually build it inside the customer insights module. Like here we had to copy and paste it from a different tool. So
Yes.
if you have a full marketing team, you probably want to check out our videos on customer insights.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And especially when it comes to like analytics and tracking, the sales module is for sales, right? Like
Yeah.
the overall goal and purpose of the D365 sales module is to focus on sales. So it does not have a lot of reporting, it doesn't have a lot of analytics, it doesn't have a lot of the KPIs and things that marketing teams are most likely used to. All of that and more is inside the Customer Insights Journeys app. For this, we're really just focused on what can I do with what's out of the box? Can I get, if I'm not sending out an email or a newsletter any other way, this is a great way to do it to kind of get your foot in the door.
Yeah.
But there are definitely more advanced tools that will fit the needs of marketing teams, especially much better in the marketing module, right?
When you said all this and more, it reminded me of that guy that used to sell those knives on infomercials. But wait, there's more.
Wait, there's some more. My song track listing is going to start playing at the end of this video. Greatest hits.
Oh,
Sounds good. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and just say new quick campaign right here at the bottom to set up our email blast. It's going to open up a nice little wizard for me. I'm going to just say next. And let's name my quick campaign. So if I want to say my February, well, let's say my, yeah, let's say February newsletter. And see, my naming conventions have improved since my email template. So I want to include that. I'm just going to go ahead and say next. What activity type? So I'm sending an email, right? You can see I've got some other options here. We cover these more in detail in that quick campaign video as well. Just going to select email for now. And I'm going to choose who this email comes from. So do I want this email to come from me, who is currently creating this email blast? Do I want it to come from whoever owns these contact records, which is typically who you would want this email to come from? Or I
yeah.
could say it comes from Peter. So everybody is getting this email from Peter or from my CFO or whoever I'm sending this email from. I can identify a specific user or like a sales team as well.
That's a good variety. And so for some companies who have a little bit of a more individualized sales process, you probably want it to go out from your salespeople, which is the
Yeah.
owner of the record, so that Bryn's customers get that newsletter from Bryn, and Peter's customers get the newsletter from Peter. And then that way, when I follow up, it's more of a personal interaction. But it does make sense that you could assign it to the central marketing coordinator, and it could come from an email like Azamba marketing. I'm sure most people listening to this have seen that before. And then assigning to a specific user makes sense. If you have one like individual that you're trying to set up as an expert or an authority figure, you could send it all from that person.
Yes, absolutely can. And I'll say again, another bonus of working with Customer Insights Journeys is that we can, if you're looking for additional options beyond this, you could set up different reply email addresses than sender. So you've got a lot more flexibility there as well. But this is nice to
Nice.
have because it does give you some options for further personalizing this communication just beyond like a blank push to everybody.
Yeah.
All right, so the next option that I have here is to select whether or not these email activities should be closed. And that is basically dynamic speak for send this email. So when I hit this next button, if that button is checked, it's going to send that email out right now. If I unselect this box, which is what I'm going to do right now, it will
Good
create,
choice.
yeah, I'm currently working in a demo system, but still better safe than sorry. It will still create the record for the email, but it's not going to send it. So I can see the email, I can see the record, I can click into it, I can manually hit send. But if I leave this checked, right, it's going to automatically go out to everybody as soon as I finish this wizard.
I have a question though. So if it doesn't go out right now, are you saying it goes onto each of the individual contacts timeline and then someone's gonna have to manually send it?
Yes, yeah. So if you're working in your actual dynamic system, leave this checked.
Yeah, that's what I was
Unless,
gonna say, because otherwise our example is like 5 contacts, but like if you
yeah,
have thousands of people, there's no way you're gonna want to
no.
go through. Yeah, okay, perfect.
And
We're on the same
why.
page.
But for instance, if I'm setting this up maybe to do at a later time, maybe I'm working on these working on building this out at like 3 a.m. Don't complete the quick campaign. You just
Yeah.
set up your details. Make sure if you're sending this out and this box is checked, if you want it to go out during business hours, it'll go out during business hours. I'm going to unselect it for my purposes now just because I don't have the ability to send emails in this demo system, and say next. Awesome. So this is going to allow me to choose my content, right? So I could choose not to use a template, and I could paste that HTML in here just like I did earlier in my template. I could build out my content here now. The nice thing about doing it as a template earlier is that I'm not stuck and tied into this quick campaign where I have to wait until this point to actually build the email out. I could have done that earlier, and I can just go ahead and pull that in.
I mean, it makes sense to me to do, although it does seem like you could just as easily paste the HTML in
Oh,
here.
yeah.
It just seems like by breaking into 2 steps, you can perfect what the email is going to look like and then go and run the campaign. It makes a lot more sense to me. And then also
Yes.
true, you might run this quick campaign against current customers, but
Mm-hmm.
then you might say, you know what, I also want to send this to prospects. And the template's already been built, so you can just go
Yeah.
and reuse it.
Exactly. But again, I mean, I could paste that HTML in here. I can preview it the exact same that I
Yeah.
can with the template. But I always like to have the template because chances are if I'm sending out something like a newsletter or those kind of communications, I'm probably going to use that template again. So
Yeah.
again, why reinvent it every single time? So I'm going to say use template. Yes.
Okay, so let's go ahead and pick our template now.
Got it. So I'm going to hit the search icon here. Okay. So select my quarterly newsletter template here, and you can see it's giving me the information about this template below. So I can see it's targeting my contact, I created it, when I created it, and my description. So that's nice too. So another great use case for why you want to put a nice description in there. It's going to give me all the information that I need so I know I'm choosing the right one. I don't have to go back and verify in my email templates that I've got the right option. So I'll go ahead and select that here. And I can see once that loads, if I wanted to click here and open this up, it's going to show me a little preview of my newsletter. It's going to pop this up. This is hopefully going to look familiar to everybody, the quarterly email newsletter that we sent, that we built a couple of minutes ago. If it doesn't look familiar, seek
The
a
only thing
doctor.
about
Yeah.
the sales module that I really dislike, to be honest, is the fact that it just shows the HTML as text. It doesn't actually show me what it's going to look like, which is a little bit frustrating, I guess. But I guess what you could also do is send a copy of that template to yourself so you can see what it
Yes.
actually looks like before you send it out to your customers.
Exactly. And you could do that as a one-off email. You could do it as a single, or you could send it to like a test marketing list. We, even with customer insights journeys, a lot of times what we'll do is suggest that you have a test user list. So I'd put myself on it, maybe you, a couple of other users. I send it out before I send a single journey or a single email communication out of D365 sales. And that way I know everything's working, everything's locked in, everything looks how I want it to look before I'm actually reaching out to any of my customers.
That makes a lot of sense.
All right, so I'm going to go ahead and close that there and just say next. All right, so it's giving me a nice little summary of my quick campaign. It's telling me what I'm going to be sending out, the scope, so who the owner or who the email is coming from. And it's telling me a nice little warning down here again that after we create this quick campaign, it's going to be available in my quick campaigns to view later. I'll go ahead and say create.
So now it's actually creating all those activity records and the individual emails. They aren't going out automatically right now because we didn't select that option.
Yes, but if we had, which you should, the emails are going to be going out automatically to everybody right now. So you can see now that my quick campaign has been created, I've got my February 2025 newsletter email here. it'll show me when I open this up, which again, mine are not sent yet, but it'll show me, oh, I've got 5 successes. So that's 5 records created. And I had a failure. I think we can all probably guess who the
Yeah.
failure is. Sam with no email address. And I can see the folks that it did go out to here on the bottom. And my excluded member, my friend Sam Test with no email address, is going to show up right here.
Perfect.
Now, if I wanted to view what these emails looked like, right, I have the option to expand. I can scroll through. So this is my
Oh, so here you
HTML.
do see it as it actually looks on the customer side. So that's nice.
Yes, exactly. So I've got my nice little preview. I can also open and interact with this record. One of the really nice things about sending out newsletters or email blasts of any kind from Dynamics is you can see these emails are automatically all tracked into the system, as would, hypothetically, any replies to them. So if I get customers replying back to me saying, oh, great, I saw your coupon code, or I saw you have a new product coming out, or I saw you have an event coming up, those responses are tracked back to Dynamics. And you can even go a step further when using campaigns or quick campaigns and automatically create campaign responses that could be things like opportunities or leads from the emails that are automatically generated just by the fact that somebody is responding to your email. So very nice feature to have as well.
I have a few questions here.
Yeah.
So what if someone wants to opt out? Could you set that up as a campaign response, or is that baked into the system?
It
And
is
you don't need
baked
to
in.
show me. I'm just kind of curious.
Yeah, it is baked into the system. Again, for more robust options, like just not a blanket unsubscribe, Customer Insights Journeys has an option where when you click that link at the bottom for your content preferences, it would give you some different options for I only want to receive information about new product launches
I
or
see.
newsletters, whatever it is. Inside Dynamics 365 Sales, you don't have that kind of flexibility, but you do have the option to unsubscribe and say, I don't want to receive any communications from you
That
whatsoever,
would hurt my
basically.
feelings. I hope they don't do that.
I hope they don't as well. But one of the great things, again, if I hate to like keep, I know we're talking about the out of the box sales options, which are great. But one of the nice things about Customer Insights Journeys as well is that you do have that option to say, well, oh, before you go, wouldn't you like to maybe consider keeping a few of these communication lines
Yeah.
open? So,
Before you make a horrible mistake
yes.
by unsubscribing,
Don't do it. Yeah. Maybe I understand you don't want to hear maybe about like all of our events. Maybe you're not located locally, so it's not useful to you. But if you want to continue to hear about sales promotions, newsletters, updates, things like that, you give people some additional flexibility with the Customer Insights Journeys app.
yeah, that makes sense. Then my other question was, I don't know if you have anything more to show here, but I just wanted to be clear about something. So if I went to like Emma Davis's record, I would see this email under her timeline too, right?
Yeah, let's take a look at Emma. So let's go into Emma's contact record, pull up Emma here, and then I can see right in her timeline. Again, our email didn't send, but it will be. It is created as a record. So you can see I've got,
Well, that's a different email, but there's the
oh,
tips down
yeah, there's
below.
my tips right down below. But yes, so it'll show up in Emma's record. It gets tracked to her contact. If I had sent it to the account, for instance, or if I had sent it from a different template type, it would also be tracked there.
Very cool. This is nice, and I just wanted to close the loop on this because obviously, if I'm a salesperson and Emma Davis calls me, I can just go jump into her record real fast, just see what kind of
Yes.
communications my marketing team has been supporting me with by sending out to Emma. I can see if she got the new press release, I can see if she got like a discount coupon or the new product launch, whatever it is. So we're all on the same page as far as communicating with Emma. So look, that works really great.
Yeah, absolutely. It is, again, a really nice feature to have. There's a lot you can do even beyond newsletters. I think newsletters are definitely what we get asked about most. But you could do this kind of email blast or mass communications with your customer, your contact base, with anybody in your marketing lists for really any purpose. But newsletters are absolutely a very common one.
Perfect. Well, I think I'd like to wrap this up here and just maybe make an offer to people that if you have unanswered questions, hit us up on LinkedIn or comment on the video here. We'll make a follow up for folks that have a lot of questions with the frequently asked ones. But newsletters are pretty powerful. Like we said a couple times, if you really want to get hardcore into marketing, though, we do recommend you check out our customer insights videos because customer insights is it's a bigger investment, but it's going to do a lot more for you. It's going to allow you to be more structured and disciplined and more analytical with your marketing and doing the responses with your marketing. But for basic out of the box sales, this is a pretty darn good option. So if you're not using newsletters yet, you should consider it. Hopefully this video was really useful. Did you want to add anything else, Bryn?
No, I think you covered it, but thanks for making the time. And again, yeah, if you have any questions, if you need help, if you get stuck, if you, especially if you need assistance cleaning up some of that junk data that we looked at the system, definitely reach out and we're happy to help.
We should do a video on how to clean up your junk data
Yeah.
because there's just certain things that you can do just to stay on top of it. Because what you don't want to do is be using CRM for a year or two and then decide you want to start doing marketing and then realize that 40% of your records are not very useful for you. That's always a very disappointing thing. But if you stay on top of your data, you can keep it clean. Anyway, that's for a different day. For now, Bryn, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and expertise with me, and I really appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, Peter. Have a great day, everybody.
Bye, y'all.